What's happening now is that we, Tahir and me, we want to present the campaign No Humboldt 21 and especially present the book that just came, that was just, I mean, it's the release today, it came to the office yesterday, so it's very much on point to the conference. So we will interconnect those two topics, present the campaign and also the book. And yeah, myself, I'm Mareike Heller. I was part of the campaign No Humboldt 21 as a member of Afrikavenir, and I was coordinating a project for Afrikavenir in 2013 and 14 called Decolonial Objections Against the Humboldt Forum. And yeah, Tahir will introduce himself.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. You all good? All right, my name is Tahir Della. I'm part of the initiative Black People in Germany, which is now one of the oldest self-organizations for Black people in Germany. The ISD was also part of the campaign No Humboldt 21. I really wasn't present in the campaign from the beginning on because I just moved a couple of years ago from Munich to Berlin. So therefore, I present here the campaign as a stakeholder for the ISD here, and love to join Mareike.
Thank you.
The moment they laid the foundation stone for the Humboldt Forum in June 2013, the campaign issued a resolution that was supported by more than 80 NGOs, which ISD was also part of it, but also Colonial, Afrikavenir, and many others. We formulated 5 main arguments why we demand the construction should be stopped immediately. Number 1 was the State Museum of Berlin aren't the legitimate owners of their holdings. The Berlin-Cologne past is redeemed. The cultures of the world are discriminated against, being marked as strange and others. The research on non-European cultures is not problematized. And last but not least, the cultural treasures of the world remain exclusively for the good of the people of the global north.
And yeah, this campaign involved events, discussions, interventions, and demonstrations. And as Tahir already mentioned, several organizations were carrying out the campaign. And I would add the Berlin Entwicklungspolitischer Ratschlag, Afrotag TV Cybernomads, and Artefakte, and Glokal, and Berlin Postcolonial for sure, just to be complete. And the publication that we are presenting was part of the project of Afrikavenir and was funded by the Landesstelle für Entwicklungszusammenarbeit, which is always important to mention. Yeah, and it collects contributions by activists and scientists from the African continent, Black activists and scientists, post-migrant and diasporic perspectives. Yeah. So in the following, what we'll do is to follow the 4 main chapters of the publication that encompass the main topics of the campaign. So beginning with the first, it has slightly long titles, is Collecting, Interpreting, Exhibiting the Humboldt Forum as a Post-Colonial Institution. And this is the actual collage that is opening up the chapter. With this chapter, we want to, what we try to do also with the campaign is to grasp the Humboldt Forum as a concept in its whole, and also including the name itself. And so, starting with the name, Kini Ha was writing in his contribution that while the involvement of scientific practices and findings in colonizing processes are veiled, at the same time the idea of decent European science is restored, represented by German heroes such as Alexander von Humboldt, Georg Forster, and Adolf Bastian that are established as opponents of colonialism. So what we see here is that especially Alexander von Humboldt, who was quoted a lot, is presented as kind of the romantic idea of an explorer and collector who is presented as a genuine example of humanist German tradition. And what we see is that and the establishment of the Ethnological Museum and that might be even correct, the latter, but the violent tradition of ethnology and science is neglected in this narrative. And then secondly, we are problematizing German colonial history, and especially because we still think that it's not throughoutly acknowledged by the museum management in its violent implications as a whole. And it seems that it's more about cleaning the project from colonialism than about really working on and working through colonialism as a history. And Lilia Yousefi was writing her article on that issue and was analyzing the discourses and of the Stiftung Preußischer Kulturbesitz. And what she's saying is a new presentation cannot be mere window dressing, as the thematization of colonial heritage of these vast collections in the Berlin museums is indispensable. And what she actually argues is that it's not really about remembrance, but what she's calling in German Entinnерung, going back to a notion that was forged by Nicolas Laurier El Samarai, sorry. And maybe we could translate that with kind of with demembrance instead of remembrance. Yeah, so this is the first chapter. The second I will give to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. The event today was dedicated to the significance of displayed objects. Part of our campaign was also to make visible on several occasions, like for instance this poster campaign we did here, which you see on the sides here, which was launched on the 28th of February. What year?
2015.
Thank you, 2015. The other occasion was the 9th March of the remembrance of the African victims of enslavement, trade with enslaved people, and colonial occupation and racist violence, featuring prominent and not so prominent objects in the Berlin collection that claims on restitution says have or can be raised, like the Nofretete, the Queen Mother Idia, or the Mandur Yeno, the throne of the Sultan, which is also shown here on this poster.
And in the publication, we also feature short stories of these objects, and we also discuss two other instances. One is the return of a soapstone bird from Berlin to Zimbabwe, which is one of the rare cases where something has been returned, though not restitutions, because it's just a loan. And then also the issue of uncontextualized digital photographic archives and what is their impact if we are not discussing it in the framework of colonial history. The third chapter is the future of the holders, who is right.
As a campaign, we lobbied publicly for the restitution of objects and human remains. Already in 2013, in a kleine Anfrage, a short request, in the Berliner Senate answered on a question of the demands for the restitution of the case of the Benin bronzes. The answer was, so far no demand was restitution from either the former kingdom of Benin or the successor state in Nigeria has either directly or indirectly been made for the federal government of Germany. Sorry, not federal Germany, but the Foundation Preußischer Kulturbesitz.
And I think, Petula Iwola was already commenting on that as well, and she also mentioned the name of Kwame Opoku, who is an expert in the questions on restitutions and museums, and is following those discussions and commenting those discussions for years. And what we actually did in the publication was to translate his reaction, his long reaction, on that statement in 2013, where he features the whole story of demands for restitution and denial on those. And I want to just read out a bit a longer quote on that point, because I think it puts everything in quite in a nutshell. On the question of restitution of cultural artifacts, there has been an incredible play being acted over and over again. When Nigerians and other Africans ask for the return of their cultural objects, there is silence or denial. After a while, the holders declare that nobody has ever asked them to return the items. The Africans ask again, and there is silence or further denial. How long will this play go on? The hypocrisy, lies, and disrespect are beyond belief. Various international bodies, such as the United Nations and UNESCO, have recommended returning these objects, but Western states and their museums seem not to pay any attention. They should not be surprised if other states follow their non-compliant practice in other areas.
Secondly, there are also human remains in the collection of the Stiftung Preußischer Kulturbesitz. On this issue, we proactively researched evidence of human remains and confronted the officials. Tanzanian organizations like the UATAP, thank you, and Tanzania Networks wrote an open letter to the SPK in 2013 as their evidence that human remains from Tanzania are part of the collection. 2014, we present evidence of human remains that were spoils in the facilities of the National Museum in Berlin from countries such as Tanzania, Rwanda, Cameroon, and Togo.
And in the publication, we featured an interview with Siraj Rasool, who initiated the restitutions, but with actually questions on, who initiated the restitution of the skeletons of Troy and Klaas Pienaar from Austria to South Africa in 2012, and followed this process and commented on this process, and is also closely following the processes in Berlin right now, and unfortunately couldn't be here today, but is he was a commentator at several instances and on several occasions in public events. And what he is stating on the restitution of human remains is this short quote. When you make the claim that skeletons in a collection are not objects, but the remains of people, humans with names, with dates of death, with biographies, it's a revolutionary step. This is especially when they had entered the museum through process of generalization and typology. So when you enable a process of individuation, you make them persons.
Also in the resolution, we featured a quote from former Minister of Tourism and Culture from Mali, Aminata Traoré. Our cultural works enjoy civil rights in places where even our entire community is denied permission to stay. During the campaign, as the Oranienplatz in Berlin was occupied by refugees that fought for their rights to move and stay, we held a joint event on the Oranienplatz and talked about how the Humboldt Forum was to be seen as part of the struggle that the refugees fighting for.
In the book itself, this central part of, we translated an essential part of Aminata Traoré's famous statement, and then we asked herself to comment on the timeliness of the topic. We also included two other contributions in that chapter that evolve around the topic of migration and absences. One is a contribution by, or an interview with Pascal Obono, who is a Cameroonian filmmaker and editor of the Africana magazine. And we invited her for an event, and she presented her project Occupy Schloss von Puttkammer, where she works around architectural remnants of German colonialism to bridge in Cameroon, to bridge the absences of written and cinematic archives in Cameroon, because these archives are all in Europe. And what you see here is actually a snippet from the video that she made, where she did it's a Afrofuturistic movie work where she's this is a picture from the archives, but they are also doing performances on the places themselves. And then, last but not least, Okay, just to be clear, this is the Schloss von Puttkammer in Cameroon, which was built by Puttkammer, and is very much, I mean, you can recognize the style. It's a very German-styled Schloss that is still used by the president now. Yeah, so last but not least, the group Artefakte Anti-Humboldt and Afotag Cybernomads, who were also an essential part of the No Humboldt 21 campaign, created the Anti-Humboldt box, which you see in that picture. And this box is conceptualized as a traveling archive or as a traveling exhibition, and it traveled to different cities and even beyond Germany to Italy and South Africa, and will grow as it travels on. And there will be a next opportunity to see the box because it will be shown from the 11th to the 26th November in the course of the 3rd Berlin Herbstsalon in the Gorki Theater in Berlin. And in the publication, we also featured 3 posters that were part of the box, and this is meant to be like that, that you wonder where they worked on different quotes in French, German, and English, some historical, some recent. Yes, I think that is it from our side. We kind of ran through the publication. But yeah, if there are any questions, we would be happy to answer. And yeah.
Hello, my name's Rochelle. I'm South African. I'm born in Durban, and it's very interesting to be here. And I hope that the messages and things we've discussed here will go out into the media. But with regard to Mr. Tahir, you wrote a book on No Humboldt 21. How did you come upon the idea to write such a book? Because the question about the sacred art and sacred things that were stolen from Africa is a big subject. How did you just come upon this idea to write something on that?
I'm glad that I gave the question to her because I'm not really the first part of the production of the book now.
Okay, thank you.
Tahir wasn't writing, actually. We came to the idea of publishing a book and collecting these contributions because actually there is, until now, no book that is trying to combine activist perspectives and scientific perspectives. I mean, most of these people that contributed are both, and I think it became, in the beginning it wasn't that, I mean, in the beginning we didn't know in 2013 that we'll still discuss that issue, and that actually, I mean, we thought that we will still discuss that issue, but we didn't think that these posters will hang here in that room. And I think this is also going back to the amount of activism that it actually triggered. And now, so that's why the publication grew also, and that we could include more contributions and art and pictures also. So that was, yeah, that's how it came about. Actually, I mean, there's the campaign, and then the campaign in the beginning was also based on 2 people actually working and getting paid for that work, and that was Christian and me. Just to be open about that, and you have to write a project application for that, and that was where the idea was written down. That's how it came about, but that was 2014, and we are 2017, so it could also not have happened if there wouldn't have been the activism and the campaign.
Wie reagiert denn das Humboldt-Forum auf Ihre Publikation?
That's a good question. They don't. I mean, it's brand new. Huh?
Sorry, Margaret. Maybe we should translate the question.
Also, okay. The question was, how does the Humboldt Forum react on the publication? We don't know yet. The publication is. This is the first official day that the publication is in public. What we know is that in 2014 we had talks with the Stiftung Preußischer Kulturbesitz, and there was the idea and the invitation from the sides of the Stiftung to do an event together, to do a dialogue event together. And so we prepared that event, and in the end, they pulled out. So, yeah.